Part. Rick Hale, it is a Mojo Monday, my friend.
Yet another mojo-filled Monday.
Yeah, we've never even said it on here, but if you go to themojomonday.com, it brings you up to the playlist of all these. So that's kind of fun. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. It's a beautiful day,
Yeah.
man. Another week to tackle and conquer.
Absolutely. Well, we're still rocking through your book here, Stop Settling. What kind of feedback are you getting?
Tremendous, man. It's been really quite a blessing, truthfully, to know that you put something together and align your thoughts. And it was a near 10-year journey in crafting it, and another 45 years of running around trying to collect ideas and thoughts worthy of putting in print. And it's been very rewarding, and I'm excited and happy to have made a difference.
Absolutely. So we should remind everybody, or I'm happy to, rickhale.com. You can buy it if you use the code MOJO. You get a 20% discount. And I think we're going to have all your tools from the book up on that website this week, right? So that'll be exciting.
They'll be up.
So we're in chapter 4, and the title of the chapter is The First Two Questions. And one of the metaphors or analogies you really kind of kick this chapter off with is the GPS. And the GPS, most of us think of like Waze or Google Maps and all that stuff. But in life, it kind of has some other meanings as well. Why don't you give us your thoughts why you really kind of open this chapter up, or actually really the book, with this whole concept around the GPS?
Yeah, well, the functional part of the book and the tool part of the book that you mentioned is all about, where are you collectively in the life wheel, and where do you want to go? And it's like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I think it's the common response, but life's made up of small bites. And if you look at it as one big bite, it's really challenging. But the cool thing about the overlay for GPS is, there's two required elements for the global positioning system to work. It's where you are. It has to know that detail, encrypted, what are the coordinates? And then it also has to recognize where you want to go. And then it maps out turn by turn direction. And without both of the start and the ending spot clearly defined, it's not going to function properly. And you're going to get the spinning wheel of death we know when computers lock up. And so that's it. It's about, and so in life, if you're not really clear where you are and you're not really clear where you want to go, it's hard to prescribe turn by turn directions.
Yeah. So i.e. the first two questions, the name of the chapter, right?
That's it, baby.
So help me understand, obviously we want people to read the book, and we're not going to go through the entire chapter, but there's some certain concepts I'd like to pull out in this conversation. One is, why is it so important to understand crystal clear where you are?
Well, again, if
don't most people know that anyway?
Yes and no. I mean, I think we all have a concept of our identity and our self-worth and our our capacity, if you will, to overcome and achieve, but we're also built. You didn't just show up today without lots of experiences that you then, and the world is like a big mirror. It's almost like a three-dimensional mirror wrapped around you. And you only see what bounces back, and how, action, reaction. I did this and that happened. I said this and then that happened. I, tried to challenge that, and then the result was. And so sometimes self-image it can be accurate, and sometimes it can be inaccurate, but it's inside of that are the subtleties that I think create opportunity, and recognizing where the gaps are. And if you understand the gaps, then you can create a path to create a gain. And so part of this whole concept is, again, breaking it down into bite-sized pieces so it becomes manageable and it becomes inspiring. And, I've shared many times that progress is more important than perfection. Yeah. And people often quit only because they have this visual of perfection that seems impossible, where progress seems extremely possible. Most people would argue that even if I don't know, I'm never going to climb Mount Everest, but I know people that have, and I mean, it's life or death. But if you thought you could get to the mid camp, maybe you'd take a few steps in that direction to experience what it would be like to overcome something that significant.
Yeah.
And so, there are tools to help you. And part of it, and inside of this, in my book, is like this whole strategy for self-assessment that you then can prescribe strategies for progress, and ultimately leading to, at least your paradigm or perspective around perfection. And, again, we're going to, I'm sure at some point talk about, why are we living into other people's ideals versus our own?
We're going to jump into all that, but I want to stay on where are you first. So obviously you talk about behavior assessments in the book. You talk about a bunch of different tools that we could tease, but really you got to read the book to kind of dive into it all. But one of the questions you ask at the end of the chapter that speaks to where are you, I think really well, is this question that says, if you ever had a job you were really good at, yet you had no passion for, what made you decide to leave? And Rick, I thought about that when I was reading this chapter about all the people over the years I've interviewed that were in corporate America, succeeding, making good money, but they hated their life. And they were like, but I'm good at it. And I'm in the corner office, I'm succeeding, I'm making money, but I don't love my life. And a lot of people, I'm not saying real estate's right for everybody, but a lot of people that I've interviewed that have gotten into real estate came with that perspective of going, man, I'm succeeding, but I'm not passionate about what I'm doing. Why is that such an important concept to understand?
Well, there's two things that happen in life. One is what you're good at, and the other is what you really like. And so I think sometimes the flip side of being really good at something, making a lot of money, is that you really like something, but you're not necessarily that great at it, which is an interesting possibility, I suppose. And so part of that self-assessment in the first GPS, coordinate is, what am I good at? And then overlay, what do I really enjoy and love? And what, and my friend Eric Saperson, and I share his story in the book too, in the movie and books that he's created, a super talented, introspective guy. But, the secret to a life well lived is doing the things that allow you to wake up inspired and go to bed fulfilled. And the only way that happens is to overlay your gifts and skills with things you really enjoy that give you that sense of purpose and reward. And again, you can't holistically, it's hard. Like if I said, hey, Brett, what does it look like to have an amazing, perfect life? Yeah. I mean, where do you start? So without breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, I think it becomes overwhelming and maybe daunting or maybe intimidating even.
That's where my brain went going, is he really asking me this question? Right? Like,
I'm not going to call you out publicly, but I would struggle with the same question. Now, if you said, out of these 12 categories, that you've helped craft in the wheel of life, and, where can you improve to create a better experience or outcome, or that ultimately, if you did you address all 12 with small incremental gains, that to me is an easier way to attack and define what a perfect, amazing life is.
Yeah. And I want to kind of dive into wrong turns and flaws. And obviously in this conversation, from the GPS, you have to know where you're starting from, and you have to know where you want to go. And I always laugh when we start talking about GPSs, because I taught my daughter Natalie how to drive, and the first time we were doing a long distance a drive, I said, okay, here's where we're going. I want you to help us. I want you to navigate us to get there. And I'm thinking, okay, she's going to pull out a map. She's going to use Waze. And literally she picked up her phone and goes, hey, Siri, take me here. And I'm going, wow, the younger generation doesn't know how to read a map. The younger generation doesn't know how to navigate going from point A to point B without this innovation of technology, which on some hands is a great thing. But in this context, navigating your life from point A to point B probably has some wrong turns in there, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so for me, the way that I've continued to fight the good fight to become the best version of me is becoming more comfortable being flawed and making mistakes. And there's a term called failing forward, and there's countless books on why it's important. But I think I think your flaws can be your superpower. And that may be awkward and weird for someone to process if you've never heard that, but it's your flaws that make you relatable. It's the things you've experienced or attempted and failed at that, when compounded with other failures, that create perspective. in not only what you can or can't do or what you should or shouldn't do, but also being able to give great advice to people who are younger. And, and people are attracted to people who have, well-traveled wisdom. And so the only way to have well-traveled wisdom is to go out and fail, attempt and fail, attempt and fail. And so part of that failure piece and why people don't often stretch or push is they're afraid of failure, and maybe the social pressure or the, maybe it's just the risk, and maybe it's financial, maybe it's your identity gets dented, or what you thought you were is not who you exactly are. But I think it makes you relatable. And I think the other thing it does is that, I heard this recently, that if you want to love yourself more, do hard things.
Yeah,
and
I was just about to go there. Like,
yeah, the statement didn't say if you
don't do hard things.
Yeah, the statement isn't if you go do hard things and always succeed. It's go do hard things, challenge yourself, and you'll learn things about yourself that you wouldn't. And it's a little bit like in one of the flaws potentially in GPS, and I wonder if it does this, where it's thinking about real-time traffic, but there's a shit like nothing is there's no permanence of perfection. In other words, all of a sudden there's an accident, it has to reroute. And I think the benefit of the reroute and of taking wrong turns is that you see things you don't see on the most direct, immediate path.
Or lessons learned, right?
Yeah, or lessons learned. That's a left turn when you should have gone right. And course correction is the gift, and the experience could become your superpower because you're more aware of what you're really good at, or what you really know, or what your natural gifts. And then it allows you to also recognize where maybe someone needs to be in your world or your life that's that augment, or that, that piece of you that's not great, that the combined becomes way greater. The 1 and 1 is 3.
Yeah. I was thinking about choosing hard, right? Like, I think people, when they choose easy, expect not to fail. That's why they're choosing easy. But people that actually make a practice of choosing hard, they don't expect to fail, but they're willing to fail.
Right.
Because they understand this concept of flaws can become your superpower, right?
That's it. A willingness to be okay not being perfect is a big step in the right direction.
All right. Well, let me take us to this second question, which is, where do you want to go? And I want to read a little bit out of the book and get your commentary around it. So the first thing is, it says your answer to this question, as with your responses to all the exercises in this book, should be rooted in courageous honesty. Those are really big, powerful, emotional words. And I really just wanted to get your commentary around, why did you choose to put courageous honesty in the dialogue of this?
Because I think it takes courage to look in the mirror and own reality, because it's not always pretty. There's been many days where I looked in the mirror and said, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Who am I and how did I get here? And, whether it was a trauma, a tragedy, or, a storm. But courage, just to be clear, in my definition, isn't the lack of fear. It's embracing fear and recognizing that you don't want to do it. You have to do it. It's because it's in your DNA to elevate and to constantly work towards an improved version of yourself. So courage isn't the lack of, it's embracing it and being okay with the outcome. And the simple solution in my mind is to always analyze worst case scenario. And if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger to some degree, always resonates in my head. And then what's the regret if I don't give it my best shot and at least try? And, there's a statement too that I've always employed, Brett. It's an affirmation. If it's to be, why not me? Yep. And if it's been done, why can't I do it?
Yep. The other thing I wanted to get your commentary on, I kind of want to put you on the spot on this one, because you put it in your book. It's your words. You said your desired destination should be your choice, not your parents. And I kind of read that and went, okay, Rick's raised 4 young men that are all out of the house, living their lives now. And that obviously has got to be a perspective every parent goes through, right? Or the destination should be your choice, not your parents, your spouses, or your coworkers. If you're always plotting your next step to make someone else happy, or to try to prove something, you never get around to discovering your purpose, right? And contributing your initiative, wisdom, living your life. man, how do you take that advice as a parent,
Yeah,
knowing they have to choose their life, right?
they do. And, I think a couple of thoughts come to mind. One is I'd rather fail at my own life than succeed at someone else's version of what, they think I should be, and have it not resonate and become, again, my dream life. Like, own your story, own your path, own your decisions, and then, go and grow with that experience. And I think one of the mistakes I think parents make today is they're constantly putting up bumpers. You go bowling, and every now and then throwing gutter balls is just part of the game. And it's is it embarrassing? Is it upsetting to be imperfect? Sure, but that's how you figure things out. Okay, don't throw the ball there, or maybe put less spin on it, or fill in the blank. But parents today, I think, throw bumpers up on everything. We save, solve, and cure. We think our mission is to create less pain and make life easy, and really it's not. I think it's to my dad said this once. He said, "I'll let you fall on your ass, but never on your face." And there's a distinguishable difference. One is more permanent and, painful. The other, you dust off, you get up and you go. And I think, I had another friend tell this story of how he ran out of gas on the way to school, and it was his final exam coming up in like 5 minutes, and he was like 5 miles from school, and he calls his dad. Dad, I ran out of gas. What should I do? He goes, I don't know, son. That's terrible. Let me know how that works out. And a part of me's like, that's hard to see. When you have a child, you just don't want them to fail, but we're depriving them of that growth, and that, all of a sudden letting failure become a superpower because of their newfound awareness.
Yeah. It's almost
So
like
they've got to fail forward, and they've got to live their lives. And who am I to script it for them? All I can tell them is these are the 6, 8, 10, 12 life lessons I've had along the way. Now overlay that paradigm in your world, and you figure out your GPS here, and you figure out where you want to land. And I'm here to consult. If you have questions about turns and opportunities, I'm happy. But we deprive them when we don't let them fail forward.
Yeah. And our mutual friend Eric, you mentioned Eric Sapperson earlier. He talks about, to know the road ahead, ask those coming back, right? So I think what you're saying is, wisdom and advice and lessons learned can be shared, but not manipulated into their story.
Well, deep down, their subconscious heart and minds, they know that the story and the rhetoric and the narrative's been manipulated, that it's been scripted, and they're just playing a part of somebody else. They know, yeah. And and we all know when we're underachieving and not fulfilling our potential. Yep. And going back to that whole picking small goals and attainable, easy things that, don't really fulfill us, we know when we're playing safe and not challenging. And honestly, you love yourself more if you challenge. We're built to go and grow. We're built to expand, and your capacity is far greater than you're giving yourself credit for in most cases.
Yeah. So let me take us somewhere real quick. So I'm going to put the Wheel of Life up on the screen here. And if you're listening to this, it's certainly something you can go to rickhale.com and download the Wheel of Life and pull it up on your phone or wherever you're at. But there's really 12 categories, Rick. And I think what I'm hearing you say is courageous honesty. I'm hearing you say that this is, I'm going to let you comment. It's your book, right? Go.
So this is just a way, there's a saying out there: prescription without proper diagnosis is malpractice. Prescription without proper diagnosis is malpractice. So to wake up every day and go, and to just arbitrarily choose to do something because either you saw it on social media or someone told you should, or you made a collective assessment about where you are, you might be missing the magic and ending up in a fulfilling, regret-free life. And so what I've actually, I think most people get this intuitively, but don't actually practice it. And I'm trying to make this practical and easy to see and think through, is that when you break it down into bite-sized pieces, it's much easier to get really clear about flaws, deficiencies, and ultimately the gain is in the gap of where you are and where you could go. And so there's a dozen categories that it's real easy to have a conversation with yourself around. and with your inner circle, closest friends or family, your spouse, and go, what can we do to move the needle? If it's a 6 or a 7, make it an 8 inside of the next week, 2 weeks, 30 days. And then you get that progress over perfection story going, where you're, every time you get closer to that ultimate better version of yourself in a category, it's like reinvesting in yourself, and it creates fuel that goes back in the tank to keep you, again, to help you wake up inspired and go to bed fulfilled, because you just know your subconscious brain's listening and it gets excited about progress.
Yep. All right. So I like always ending our Mojo Mondays with asking you a question out of the back of your chapter. And the question I want to ask you today is, now that you're plotting a path from where you are to where you want to go, are you ready to choose to do whatever it takes to get there? So what I think's interesting about this question is there's a practical system or formula, or how to go from point A to point B, assess yourself, look at the wheel of life. But then there's this secret sauce, what I'm hearing you say, that's a part of the journey in between, and it's do whatever it takes to get there. Why is that important?
Well, for one, a committed heart cannot be denied. That's one of my favorite quotes. If you're truly committed, you will figure out how to reach your goal or to make strides and steps in the right direction. And so commitment's a big piece of the equation. And, what I would say inside of this challenge is take a honest, courageous look at where you are, download the wheel of life, give yourself proper rating and credit where it's due, but also recognize where the flaw is, and then own what it might look like in 30, 60, 90, or in the process part of the book. Again, it's a 5-year future self, because the paradigm of potential and how we see life 5 years from now can be so much more grand and so much bigger, because it's not intimidating. It's not like it has to happen today. You've got time to work towards that. And so the committed part is, if you define where you are today and you define where you want to be in 5 years, or even in a year, or even next week, and when you look at where you want to land, if that doesn't really get your blood going and get you excited and your heart rate up a little, it's probably not the right goal. And so the courage to be honest, and then also the commitment to going, I'm going to test my own thought around where I want to land. And then at any point in the journey, if it turns out that there's you needed to take a left or right turn, you're positioned to do it, because you're a few steps closer, and you know what it looks and tastes like.
I love it. Rick, it is Mojo Monday, sir.
Yes, sir. Happy Mojo Monday, everybody.
Happy
Just
Mojo
know we love you.
Monday.